She hugged a stranger to avoid her ex, unaware he's a mafia boss who'd fall for her. The art curator thought it was a momentary escape, a split-second decision at her biggest gallery opening. But the next morning, her career shatters when $1 million painting vanishes, and police show her surveillance photos of the man she embraced, Chicago's most feared crime lord. When he appears in her apartment offering a deal, be his date for a month, and he'll save her reputation, she has no choice but to agree. As his world of luxury and danger pulls her in, bullets fly and passion ignites. But beneath their growing connection lies a deadly truth. Her vengeful ex is working with a rival crime family, setting a trap that will destroy them both. When the mafia boss is gunned down and she's thrown in jail, a shocking discovery changes everything. She's carrying his child, but what she doesn't know is that he's still alive, and he's coming for everyone who dared to touch what's his. What happens when an innocent woman's desperate hug leads her straight into a war between criminal empires? And how far will a ruthless mafia boss go to protect the one weakness he never saw coming, the woman who accidentally claimed his heart? The evening lights of Chicago filtered through the Galleria d'Arte's tall windows, casting a warm glow over the pristine white walls. Sophia Romano stood in the back room, her fingers smoothing invisible wrinkles from her black cocktail dress. Her reflection in the small mirror showed a woman trying desperately to project confidence she didn't feel. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself, adjusting a loose strand of dark hair. 6 months of work had led to this moment. 6 months of carefully curated pieces, sleepless nights, and the constant whispers that followed Marcus's accusations. The gentle murmur of voices and soft classical music drifted through the door. Sophia squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and stepped into the gallery space. The transformation from anxiety-ridden curator to polished professional happened in those few steps. "Ms. Romano, the Bellini piece is extraordinary," an older gentleman commented as she passed. Sophia paused, offering a warm smile. "Thank you, Mr. Patterson. The light captures the oils perfectly in this space, doesn't it?" She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, discussing brush techniques and price points, watching potential buyers sip champagne and gesture at various pieces. Everything was going smoothly until she caught a glimpse of familiar blonde hair and an arrogant stance that made her stomach clench. Marcus Cole. Her ex-boyfriend stood near the entrance, his perfectly tailored blazer and carefully styled hair marking him as the successful art dealer he portrayed to the world. Only Sophia knew the manipulative monster beneath that polished exterior. Her heart rate spiked. She needed an escape route, something to avoid the inevitable confrontation that would taint her. Opening night. That's when she saw him. The stranger stood alone before one of her favorite pieces, a modern interpretation of Dante's Inferno. He commanded attention without trying, his presence filling the space around him. The cut of his charcoal suit spoke of wealth that went beyond Marcus's pretensions, but it was his stance that drew her eye, the quiet confidence of a predator at rest. Desperation drove her forward before she could second-guess herself. She approached his side, noting his striking profile and the way his dark eyes studied the artwork with genuine interest. "I apologize for this," Sophia whispered, slipping her arm through his. "But I desperately need help avoiding someone, and you look capable of handling difficult situations." The stranger turned, surprise flickering across his features for just a moment before something else replaced it. Amusement, perhaps, or intrigue. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw dusted with 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes that seemed to see right through her professional facade. "Luca," he said simply, his voice a low rumble that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "Sophia Romano," she responded, trying to ignore how natural it felt to stand beside him. "The man by the entrance in the gray blazer, he's my ex, and he's been trying to destroy my career for the past 6 months. Understanding darkened Luca's expression. His arm shifted, drawing her closer against his side with a possessiveness that should have alarmed her. Instead, she found herself relaxing into his solid warmth. Right on cue, Marcus approached, his smile as fake as the Rolex on his wrist. "Sophia, darling. Wonderful exhibition." Before she could respond, Luca's hand settled on her hip. "You must be Marcus," he said, his tone pleasant, but carrying an undercurrent that made Marcus step back slightly. "Sophia mentioned you might be here. I'm Luca, her date for the evening." The color drained from Marcus's face. Something in Luca's presence seemed to trigger a primal warning system, and Marcus's survival instincts were clearly functioning better than his ego for once. Yes, well, Marcus stammered, his usual smooth demeanor cracking. Lovely to see you both. If you'll excuse me, I believe I see a client. They watched him retreat, practically tripping over himself to put distance between them. Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Thank you, she said, attempting to step away. Luca's hand remained firmly on her hip. That was quite bold of you, he observed, dark eyes studying her face. Approaching a stranger, involving him in your personal drama. Heat crept up Sophia's neck. I'm normally much more professional, I assure you. Something about him just... I couldn't face another scene, not tonight. And you chose me because? You looked... safe, she lied, knowing he was anything but. Everything about him radiated danger, carefully controlled but unmistakable. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. Now that's definitely a lie, Kara. He reached into his jacket, producing a business card. Your number. I'm interested in several pieces. I can have my assistant forward you our catalog. Your number, he repeated softly, the words somehow both a request and a command. Sophia found herself taking the card, scribbling her private number on the back before her common sense could object. Their fingers brushed as she returned it, sending another inexplicable shiver through her. I look forward to discussing art with you, Sophia Romano, Luca said, tucking the card away. His eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary, promising something that made her pulse quicken. As she watched him move through the crowd with predatory grace, Sophia tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. But something in her gut told her she'd just stepped into waters far deeper than she'd intended, and the current was already pulling her under. Sophia's phone buzzed for the fourth time as she hurried down Michigan Avenue, juggling her coffee and bag while dodging morning commuters. 6 missed calls from Giorgio, the gallery owner. Her stomach twisted. After last night's successful opening, what could possibly warrant this kind of urgency? The exhibition had gone perfectly, aside from the Marcus incident. Her mind briefly flickered to the mysterious stranger who'd helped her, but she pushed the thought away. She had more pressing concerns. Police cruisers crowded the street outside the Galleria d'Arte. Sophia's coffee slipped from her nerveless fingers, splashing across the sidewalk. 2 officers stood guard at the entrance, while others moved purposefully through the space she'd meticulously arranged just yesterday. Miss Romano. Giorgio's usually impeccable appearance was disheveled, his Italian accent thicker with distress. Where have you been? I've been calling since dawn. What's happening? Sophia asked, though the sick feeling in her stomach told her she didn't want to know. The Caravaggio study, it's gone. Giorgio's words hit her like physical blows. Stolen sometime after midnight. Over $1 million worth of art vanished. The room spun slightly. The Caravaggio study had been their centerpiece, on loan from a private collector. Its presence had elevated their exhibition from notable to extraordinary. But the security system, Sophia started. Disabled, a deep voice cut in. A detective approached, his badge reading Martinez. Along with the surveillance footage. Very professional job. We need to ask you some questions, Miss Romano. The next hours passed in a blur of accusations, thinly disguised as questions. Where was she after the gallery closed? Did she have financial troubles? Who had access to the security codes? They paid special attention to her role in selecting which pieces would be displayed and where. We have some photographs we'd like you to look at. Detective Martinez said, spreading several surveillance photos across the table. Known associates of various criminal enterprises who attended last night. Recognize anyone? Sophia's heart nearly stopped as she saw him. Luca, her supposed savior from last night, stared back from one of the photos. The caption beneath read, Luca Valenti, head of Valenti crime family. Miss Romano, Martinez pressed. You've gone pale. She forced herself to breathe normally. I don't recognize anyone, she lied, her voice remarkably steady, despite the panic clawing at her chest. The detective's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Several witnesses saw you quite cozy with one particular individual. I spoke with many guests, Sophia said carefully. As curator, it was my job to circulate. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from the private collector demanding answers about his stolen artwork. By afternoon, word had spread through Chicago's art community. Giorgio barely looked at her as she tried to help contact insurance companies and handle the press. Perhaps, he said stiffly, you should go home. We'll handle things here. The dismissal stung, but Sophia couldn't argue. Her presence was only making things worse. The walk home felt endless, her mind racing through possibilities. Had she unknowingly helped the theft by providing a distraction? Was that why Luca had insisted on her number? She trudged up the 3 flights to her apartment, fumbling with her keys. The door swung open to reveal her small living room, bathed in evening shadows, and occupied. Luca Valenti sat in her favorite reading chair as if he belonged there, his dangerous elegance even more apparent in the intimate setting. A large man in a dark suit stood by her entrance, clearly a bodyguard. Sophia's heart thundered against her ribs as Luca's dark eyes met hers. "We need to talk about your little problem at the gallery, Sophia," he said smoothly. She should run. She should scream. Instead, she stood frozen, realizing with horrifying clarity that her impulsive decision to approach him last night had set something in motion that she couldn't stop. In the soft lamplight, Luca looked both more and less dangerous than he had at the gallery. His sharp features softened slightly, but the predatory grace more evident in the casual way he owned her space. "How did you get in?" she managed to ask, proud that her voice only shook slightly. "That's your first question?" Amusement colored his tone. "Not about the missing Caravaggio, or why Chicago's most notorious crime boss is sitting in your apartment." The reminder of his identity sent fresh fear through her. She'd approached him, touched him, given him her number. And now a priceless artwork was missing. Her career was in shambles, and she was alone with him. "Did you steal it?" The question burst out before she could stop it. "Would I be here if I had?" He gestured to the couch across from him. "Sit down, Sophia. You look like you're about to faint, and we have much to discuss." Her legs moved without conscious decision, carrying her to the couch. The bodyguard closed her door with a quiet click that sounded unnervingly final. "You're in serious trouble," Luca continued, his voice deceptively gentle. "The police suspect you're involved. Your professional reputation is at risk, and someone is going to great lengths to make you appear guilty." "Someone?" Sophia repeated. "You know who did this?" "I have my suspicions." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Tell me about Marcus Cole." The mention of her ex-boyfriend sent a chill down her spine. "What does Marcus have to do with this?" "Everything, I suspect." Luca leaned forward, his presence filling her small living room. "But before we get into that, we need to establish some ground rules about how this conversation and our future interactions will proceed." Sophia stood frozen in her doorway, her heart hammering against her ribs. The living room she'd left pristine this morning now held Chicago's most dangerous man, lounging in her reading chair as if he owned it. Her hand crept toward her phone. "I'm calling the police." "I wouldn't," Luca said softly. "You're already their prime suspect in the theft. A desperate call about finding me in your apartment would only confirm their suspicions about your criminal connections." Her hand dropped. He was right. She was already under investigation. "What do you want?" "Sit." He gestured to the couch across from him. "You look unsteady." The bodyguard's presence at the door made it clear she had little choice. Sophia perched on the edge of the couch, keeping as much distance as possible between herself and Luca. "I didn't steal your painting," he said, studying her with those penetrating dark eyes. "But I know who did, and I can help recover it." "Why would you help me?" "Because I want something in return." He loosened his tie slightly, the casual gesture at odds with his dangerous reputation. "I need a companion for social functions. 1 month of your time attending events as my date?" Sophia stared at him. "You're joking." "I never joke about business arrangements." His voice remained calm, matter of fact. "My family has certain expectations about settling down. Having a respectable, cultured woman on my arm would be convenient." "This is insane." She stood up, anger overriding fear. "I won't be your kept woman." "Nothing so tawdry." His lips curved slightly. "Public appearances only, no private obligations." "The answer is no." "Then perhaps we should discuss your employment status." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through documents. "As of 3 hours ago, Galleria d'Arte's controlling interest was purchased by VCI Holdings, one of my companies." The room spun slightly. "You bought the gallery? Which means I can either terminate your employment immediately or clear your name of any involvement in the theft." He set the phone down. "Your choice." Sophia sank back onto the couch, mind racing. Her career, everything she'd worked for, balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move and it would all crumble. "Why me?" she whispered. "You're intelligent, elegant, and your background is impeccable." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. More importantly, you showed initiative approaching me last night. I admire that kind of quick thinking. And if I refuse, then you're on your own with the police investigation." His tone remained pleasant, but the threat was clear. "I imagine it will be difficult to find gallery work anywhere after being implicated in the theft of a Caravaggio." Hours passed as they negotiated terms. Sophia insisted on maintaining her regular work schedule. No private meetings, no physical contact beyond what was necessary for public appearances. Everything in writing. Luca agreed readily to her conditions, producing a contract that seemed suspiciously prepared in advance. "Sign here," he said, offering an expensive fountain pen. "And here." Her hand trembled slightly as she signed. What choice did she really have? "Our first engagement is tomorrow evening," he said, tucking the contract into his jacket. "The Children's Hospital Foundation Gala. I'll send a car at 7. "Tomorrow?" Sophia's voice rose. "That's too soon. I need time to talk yourself out of our arrangement." His smile didn't reach his eyes. 7 o'clock, Sophia. Wear something elegant, black or red." He rose smoothly, his height and presence filling her small living room. The bodyguard opened the door without being signaled. "Get some rest," Luca said from the doorway. "Tomorrow will be interesting." The door clicked shut behind them. Sophia sat motionless for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Finally, with shaking hands, she grabbed her laptop. The search results for Luca Valenti made her blood run cold. News articles detailed suspected connections to everything from money laundering to murder. His family controlled half of Chicago's shipping ports. Law enforcement had tried and failed repeatedly to build cases against him. "The Untouchable," one headline proclaimed. How Luca Valenti became Chicago's most dangerous man. Photos showed him at charity events, business functions, gallery openings, always impeccably dressed, always watching with those calculating dark eyes. Women appeared in some pictures, beautiful socialites and models, none lasting more than a few appearances. A more recent article caught her eye. Valenti Empire expands. Crime boss diversifies into legitimate business. The piece detailed his recent acquisition of several profitable companies, suggesting he was cleaning up the family business. Sophia closed the laptop, feeling sick. She'd just agreed to spend a month on the arm of a man who could probably have her killed with a phone call. A man who now controlled her employment, her reputation, her future. The painting's theft, her desperate plea for help last night, his appearance in her apartment. It all felt too neat, too orchestrated. Had she walked right into his trap? Or was she paranoid, seeing conspiracy where there was only opportunity? She got up on unsteady legs and poured herself a generous glass of wine. Tomorrow she would attend a gala with one of Chicago's most dangerous men. She had less than 24 hours to prepare herself for whatever game Luca Valenti was playing. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Car will arrive at 7 p.m. sharp. Don't disappoint me, Sophia." She deleted the message, but his words lingered in her mind. Something told her disappointing Luca Valenti would be a very dangerous mistake. Sophia stared at the black dress laid across her bed, its designer label mocking her independence. The package had arrived hours ago, a small gesture, according to Luca's handwritten note. The fabric whispered expense, the cut promising to hug every curve. She hated how perfectly it matched her taste. Her fingers traced the silk, torn between admiration and resentment. A matching pair of Louboutins sat in their box, exactly her size. Of course he'd known her measurements. Of course. At precisely 7, her doorbell rang. Sophia took one last look in the mirror, her dark hair swept up elegantly, makeup perfect, professional, controlled. Everything this evening wasn't. She opened the door to find Luca filling her doorway in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His eyes darkened as they traveled slowly down her body, lingering on where the dress clung to her hips. "Beautiful," he murmured, stepping closer. His cologne wrapped around her, expensive and masculine. Sophia forced herself to step back, maintaining distance. "Shall we go?" A knowing smile played at his lips. Of course. His hand settled at the small of her back as they walked to the waiting car, warm through the thin silk. Every point of contact sent unwanted sparks along her spine. The charity gala occupied the grand ballroom of Chicago's most exclusive hotel. As they entered, Sophia watched the crowd's reaction to Luca. Conversations paused, heads turned. Some people immediately approached, while others deliberately looked away. "Mr. Valenti," a silver-haired man in an expensive suit practically rushed over. "What an honor to see you here tonight." "Senator Harrison," Luca's arm slid possessively around Sophia's waist. Have you met my date, Sofia Romano? She's the brilliant curator at Galleria d'Arte. The pattern repeated throughout the evening. Business titans, judges, society wives, all orbiting Luca like planets around a dark sun. He handled each interaction masterfully, his charm smooth as the aged whiskey he sipped. Yet underneath lay something dangerous, a coiled power everyone seemed to sense. Sophia found herself drawn into discussions about art with several collectors, Luca watching with apparent pride as she demonstrated her expertise. His hand never strayed far from her body, her back, her arm, once brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that felt startlingly intimate. You're a natural at this, he murmured during a brief moment alone, his lips close to her ear. At what exactly? Making powerful people want to impress you. His fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Though I suspect you don't realize the effect you have. Before she could respond, he was pulled into a conversation with a judge about upcoming property legislation. Sophia excused herself to the bar, needing a moment to clear her head. She was waiting for her wine when a familiar voice made her stomach clench. Well, Marcus appeared beside her. His usual cologne couldn't quite mask the smell of too many drinks. Playing arm candy for the mob now, Sophie. That's a new low. His fingers dug into her arm as she tried to step away. Let go of me. What's your game here? Think he'll save your career after that painting went missing? Marcus's grip tightened. Or maybe you helped arrange that little theft yourself. I suggest you remove your hand. Luca's voice, deadly quiet, came from behind them. Now! Marcus spun around, face paling as he found Luca towering over him. The charm was gone, replaced by something cold and terrifying. We were just talking, Marcus stammered, releasing Sophia's arm. Yes, I heard. Luca stepped closer, his voice dropping lower. I also heard about your gallery's interesting connection to certain private collectors in Naples, the ones currently under investigation for trafficking stolen artwork. It would be unfortunate if authorities received an anonymous tip about your involvement. Marcus swayed slightly, blood draining from his face. I never... And those gambling debts you've been hiding from the gallery board? Luca continued smoothly. I imagine they'd be very interested to learn where their acquisition budget has really been going. Please, Marcus whispered. I didn't mean... Leave! The single word carried the weight of a death sentence. If you ever come near Sophia again, your career will be the least of your concerns. Marcus practically ran from the ballroom. Sophia stood frozen, processing the exchange she'd just witnessed. The casual way Luca had destroyed a man's life with just a few sentences. Are you all right? He asked, gentle concern replacing the menace so quickly it gave her whiplash. I need a minute, she managed, heading for the ladies' room on unsteady legs. The bathroom's marble coolness helped clear her head. She splashed water on her wrists, a technique her mother had taught her for calming nerves. What had she gotten herself into? Voices outside the door made her pause as she reached for the handle. Want eyes on her apartment building at all times, Luca's driver was saying. 2 men during the day, 4 at night. If she goes anywhere without the boss, you follow at a discreet distance. Already arranged, another man replied. Team's in place now. No one gets near her without us knowing. Sophia leaned against the sink, reality crashing down. She wasn't just playing the part of a mob boss's date anymore. She was being watched, guarded, drawn deeper into Luca's dark world with every passing hour. The worst part? Some treacherous part of her felt safer knowing he had men protecting her. The same part that thrilled at how he'd defended her, that noticed how powerful he looked in that tuxedo, that wanted his hands back on her body. She was in dangerous territory, and not just because of Luca's criminal empire. Her heart was at risk too, and that might prove even more dangerous than the men watching her building. Sophia gripped the cool marble of the bathroom sink, her heart pounding, men following her, protection details. What had her desperate bid to save her career gotten her into? The bathroom door opened with a soft swish. A woman in her 50s entered, radiating the kind of effortless elegance that came from generations of wealth. Her silver-streaked dark hair was swept into a perfect chignon, diamonds glinting at her throat and ears. These events can be exhausting, can't they? The woman's smile was warm as she opened her clutch, removing a lipstick. Especially when you're new to them. Yes, they can be. Sophia watched the woman's reflection, something about her practiced casualness, setting off warning bells. I'm Elena Castellano, she applied the lipstick with precision. And you're Sofia Romano, Luca Valenti's new plaything. Ice slid down Sophia's spine. This wasn't a chance encounter. I wouldn't say plaything, Sophia managed, proud her voice remained steady. Elena's laugh was musical. No? What would you call it then, dear? Love? She turned, studying Sophia with shrewd dark eyes. Oh, you're lovely. I can see why he's intrigued. The perfect combination of sophistication and innocence. I should get back to Luca, of course. Elena's perfectly manicured hand caught Sophia's arm. But first, let me give you some friendly advice. Being with Luca Valenti puts a target on your back. There's bad blood between our families going back generations. The kind that doesn't wash away. Sophia tried to pull away, but Elena's grip was surprisingly strong. Beautiful things in Luca Valenti's possession tend to get destroyed, Elena said softly. Remember that. She released Sophia's arm and glided out, leaving behind only the faint scent of expensive perfume and the chill of fear. Sophia took several deep breaths before returning to the ballroom. Luca spotted her immediately, his easy conversation with a group of businessmen falling away as he read her expression. What happened? He was at her side in seconds, one hand settling possessively on her lower back. Later, she whispered. The ride home was tense, the privacy screen up between them and the driver. You have men following me, Sophia demanded the moment they were alone. Yes. No attempt to deny it. And were you planning to tell me? Eventually, once you understood why it's necessary. His jaw tightened. What happened in that bathroom, Sophia? She told him about Elena, watching his expression grow increasingly dangerous. That fucking family, he muttered, then caught himself. The protection is non-negotiable now. Elena approaching you directly. He raked a hand through his hair. They're testing boundaries, seeing how valuable you are to me. And am I? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Valuable to you? His eyes locked on hers, intense enough to steal her breath. More than you should be. The next morning, Sophia arrived at the gallery to find police tape still across the entrance. She was turning to leave when her phone rang. The gallery owner. It's back, he said, without preamble. The Caravaggio. Someone left it outside the delivery entrance an hour ago. Sophia sagged against her car in relief. Is it damaged? Perfect condition, like it never left. He paused. The police want to talk to you again. 2 hours later, she sat across from the same detectives who'd questioned her initially. Detective Martinez spread photos across the table, surveillance shots from the charity gala, her and Luca dancing, his hand on her back, them leaving together. Want to explain your relationship with Luca Valenti? Martinez asked. We're dating, Sophia said carefully. It's new. Interesting timing, Detective Chen commented. You meet one of Chicago's most notorious crime bosses the night before a $1 million painting disappears. Then start dating him, and suddenly the painting reappears. Are you accusing me of something? We're just trying to understand the connection, Martinez said. Because right now it looks like either you helped facilitate the theft or your new boyfriend arranged it to play hero and win your trust. I had nothing to do with the theft, Sophia insisted. And neither did Luca. You seem very certain about that, Chen observed. I am. Ms. Romano. Martinez leaned forward. Do you understand what kind of man Luca Valenti is, what his family does? My relationship with Luca is personal, Sophia said firmly. I've cooperated fully with your investigation. Unless you're charging me with something, I think we're done here. She stood, gathering her coat, trying to project more confidence than she felt. Inside, her mind was racing. Had Luca arranged the theft? Created a problem he could solve to bind her to him? She didn't want to believe it, but she couldn't deny the convenient timing. Ms. Romano, Detective Martinez called as she reached the door. Be careful. People close to Luca Valenti have a way of getting hurt. First, Elena's warning, now this. Sophia hurried out of the police station, feeling the weight of surveillance photos and unasked questions pressing down on her. She'd wanted to save her career, but now she was entangled in something far more dangerous than a stolen painting. And the worst part? Despite the warnings, despite the danger, despite her own better judgment, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Luca looked at her, the feel of his hands on her skin, the electricity that sparked between them with every touch. She was falling for him, and that might be the most dangerous thing of all. Sophia stumbled out of the police station into the bright afternoon sun, her heels clicking rapidly against the pavement as she hurried to her car. The painting's return should have been a relief, but the detective's questions left her feeling more exposed than ever. Her hands trembled slightly as she fumbled with her keys. The rest of her day passed in a blur of nervous energy and unanswered questions. She tried to focus on cataloging new acquisitions at the gallery, but her mind kept drifting to the detective's insinuations about Luca. By evening, she was exhausted and on edge. The knock at her door made her jump. Through the peephole, she saw Luca holding takeout bags from an expensive Italian restaurant she'd mentioned liking. "I didn't agree to see you tonight," she said, opening the door but blocking the entrance. "This isn't a social call." His expression was grim. "We need to talk about what happened today." Sophia hesitated, then stepped aside. Luca moved past her with his usual fluid grace, setting the food on her small dining table. The domestic gesture seemed at odds with his dangerous reputation. "The painting's return isn't good news," he said, unpacking containers of pasta. "Someone's playing games with both of us." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Steal the painting when your curator casts suspicion on you, then return it perfectly intact after you're seen with me publicly." He handed her a plate. "They're trying to create a paper trail connecting us to the theft." Sophia sank into a chair. "But why?" "To apply pressure, to force our hands." He paused as his phone buzzed. The call lasted less than a minute, but his expression darkened with each word. "Pack a bag," he said after hanging up. "You're coming to my penthouse tonight." "Excuse me?" "I have information about a credible threat against you. My building has security." "No." Sophia set down her fork. "I'm not leaving my home because you're being paranoid." "This isn't paranoia." A sharp knock interrupted them. Luca's security chief entered without waiting for permission. "Sir, we've got movement in the alley. 2 men, no clear ID yet." Luca pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This was intercepted an hour ago. Take a look." Sophia's hands shook as she examined the contents. Photos of her and Luca at the gala, at restaurants, entering her building. The final image showed them in an intimate embrace, along with a typed note. "How will the police react when they learn their prime suspect is collaborating with the mob?" "Let my team sweep your apartment," Luca said quietly. "Then I'll leave, if you still want me to." She nodded numbly. For the next 30 minutes, Luca's men methodically checked every room, closet, and possible entry point. They found nothing suspicious, but insisted on posting guards outside. "Call me if anything feels off," Luca said before leaving. "Promise me, Sophia." "I promise." She locked the door behind him, double-checking each bolt. Sleep proved elusive. Every car passing outside, every creak of her old building had her sitting up in bed. When exhaustion finally pulled her under around 2 a.m., it wasn't deep enough to miss the distinctive sound of breaking glass. Sophia's eyes flew open. Footsteps in her living room. Her heart pounded as she grabbed her phone from the nightstand, fingers fumbling to dial Luca's number. The bedroom door exploded inward before she could press call. A figure in black tactical gear rushed toward her. Sophia screamed, scrambling backward across the bed. The intruder reached for her just as shouts erupted from the hallway. Luca's security team burst in, weapons drawn. The intruder spun, darting to the window. Glass shattered as they dove through it onto the fire escape. Sophia huddled against her headboard, shaking violently. Minutes that felt like hours passed before she heard Luca's voice in the hallway, sharp with authority as he demanded updates from his men. He appeared in her doorway, deadly fury radiating from every line of his body. His usual controlled demeanor had vanished, replaced by something far more dangerous. When he spoke, his voice was arctic. "Pack whatever you need. You're coming to the penthouse." His eyes met hers, brooking no argument. "Now, Sophia." Still trembling, she looked at her shattered window, the splintered doorframe, the glass glittering on her bedroom floor. Her safe, ordinary life had already been destroyed. She nodded slowly and reached for her overnight bag. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, rousing Sophia from a fitful sleep. For a moment, she stared at the unfamiliar ceiling, trying to orient herself in the luxurious guest suite of Luca's penthouse. The events of the previous night crashed back. The intruder, the shattered glass, Luca's cold fury as he insisted she leave her apartment. The king-sized bed felt like an island in the massive room. Everything spoke of understated wealth, silk sheets, custom furniture, and a view of Chicago that made the city look like a glittering jewel box. Even the ensuite bathroom was bigger than her entire bedroom at home. Sophia pulled on the silk robe someone had left for her, probably Luca's housekeeper, and ventured into the hallway. Voices drifted from behind a closed door, Luca speaking in rapid Italian. She continued her exploration, bare feet silent on heated marble floors. The penthouse was a study in contradictions, just like its owner. Modern architecture softened by antique furniture. clean lines interrupted by classic sculptures. But it was the art that stopped her in her tracks. An entire wall displayed Renaissance sketches that her trained eye recognized as originals. A Raphael study worth millions hung casually beside architectural drawings from Leonardo da Vinci's workshop. "They're authentic!" Sophia jumped at Luca's voice behind her. He'd approached silently, dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit that emphasized his dangerous grace. "These should be in a museum," she said, professional interest overriding her nervousness. "Some things I prefer to keep private." His eyes held hers. "Are you hungry?" Maria left breakfast. In the kitchen, another surprise awaited. A grand piano occupied one corner, its gleaming surface reflecting morning light. Sophia's fingers itched to touch it. "You play?" she asked, accepting the coffee he offered. "When I need to think." He leaned against the counter. "We should discuss arrangements for your stay." The businesslike tone helped Sophia focus. "How long do you expect this to be necessary?" "Until we identify who's targeting you." He outlined security protocols. She couldn't leave without his security team. Certain areas were restricted. Cameras monitored all approaches to the building. "And you'll need to stay away from the gallery for now. But my job is secure. I own controlling interest, remember?" His smile held no warmth. "Consider this a paid leave of absence." After breakfast, Luca led her to a private gym on the floor below. "You need basic self-defense skills." "I took a women's safety course in college," Sophia protested. "Show me." He moved into a fighting stance. "Try to break my grip." His hand closed around her wrist, gentle but immovable. Sophia attempted the moves she remembered, but nothing budged his hold. "Not good enough," he said. Again. For the next hour, he taught her proper stances, how to break holds, where to strike for maximum effect. His body pressed against hers as he demonstrated techniques, strong hands positioning her arms and legs. The contact sent electricity through her skin, despite her attempts to remain professional. "You're thinking too much," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear as he showed her an escape move. "Let your body react naturally." By the end, Sophia was breathless and hyper-aware of every place they'd touched. Luca remained maddeningly composed, though his eyes lingered when she wiped sweat from her neck. That evening, they shared dinner on the terrace. Chicago spread below them like a carpet of lights, the spring air cool but pleasant. Luca's phone buzzed partway through the meal. "The Singapore deal? Yes. Proceed with the acquisition." His voice shifted to pure business authority. "The regulatory concerns are handled. Transfer the first payment through the Hong Kong office." Sophia watched him, reconciling this sophisticated businessman with the man who'd terrified Marcus at the gala. Who were the real Luca Valenti? Later, unable to sleep, she wandered to the kitchen for water. Piano music stopped. Her in the hallway, Chopin's Nocturne in B-flat minor, played with exceptional skill. She peered around the corner. Luca sat at the piano, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up his forearms. His expression was distant, lost in the music. The moonlight through the windows painted him in silver and shadow, a study in contrasts like everything else about him. Sophia leaned against the wall, listening. The man who'd efficiently taught her to break an attacker's nose now coaxed beauty from ivory keys. The same hands that had positioned her body in combat positions now moved with delicate precision across the piano. The criminal who struck fear into Chicago's underworld surrounded himself with priceless art and classical music. In her borrowed bed that night, the Nocturne's melancholy notes still drifting through the penthouse, Sophia stared at the ceiling. The Luca Valenti she'd researched online, the ruthless Mafia boss, the untouchable criminal, was real. She'd glimpsed that side of him. But so was this other version, cultured, complex, capable of creating beauty as easily as violence. The question wasn't which one was real, she realized. They both were, and that made him more dangerous than any simple criminal could ever be. Sophia winced as her back hit the training mat, Luca's body pinning her with practiced efficiency. 3 days of self-defense training hadn't improved her success rate against him. "You're still telegraphing your moves," he said, his face inches from hers. She tried to ignore how his weight felt against her, the scent of his expensive cologne mixed with exertion. "Maybe I'm just a terrible student." His eyes darkened as she shifted beneath him. "Or maybe you're distracted." The tension crackled between them until Luca abruptly released her, standing in one fluid motion. "We're done for today. We have dinner at my grandmother's house in 3 hours. Sophia sat up, brushing damp hair from her face. "What?" "Sunday dinner. It's tradition." His tone left no room for argument. Wear something casual but nice, nonna's traditional. In her suite, Sophia spent 2 hours agonizing over her appearance. She finally chose a knee-length floral dress that struck the right balance between respectful and feminine. Her hands shook slightly as she applied mascara, understanding this dinner would cement their supposed relationship in his family's eyes. Luca waited by the elevator, his usual suits replaced by dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater that somehow made him look more dangerous in its casualness. His eyes traveled appreciatively over her dress. Perfect? They drove to an old Italian neighborhood, modest homes with well-tended gardens lining quiet streets. Luca pulled up to a 2-story brick house with cheerful window boxes. Before they reached the door, it flew open. Nipoti! A small, elegant woman with sharp, dark eyes embraced Luca. She barely reached his chest, but her presence filled the doorway. She turned to Sophia, scrutinizing her before breaking into a wide smile. Ah, finally he brings a girl worth meeting. Nonna, this is Sofia Romano, Luca said, his hand settling possessively on Sophia's lower back. Romano? Italiana! Nonna switched to rapid Italian, pulling Sophia into the house. The enticing smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air. Come, help me in the kitchen. Show me you know our ways. The kitchen was organized chaos, pots bubbling, women chattering in mixed English and Italian. Nonna stationed Sophia at the counter, demonstrating how to roll proper gnocchi. My Luca says you work with art. I'm a curator, Sophia explained, concentrating on shaping the potato dough correctly. Ah, educated. Good. Nonna nodded approvingly. Not like those fashion models he used to bring, no substance. More family arrived. Luca's sister Maria with her husband and children, uncles, cousins. The house filled with loud conversation and laughter. Sophia watched in fascination as Luca transformed. He lifted his youngest niece onto his shoulders, listened intently to his nephew's rambling story about soccer practice, kissed his sister's cheek affectionately. During dinner, squeezed between Luca and his grandmother at the crowded table, Sophia learned more about him through Nonna's stories than weeks of media research had revealed. Always so serious, even as a boy, Nonna said, passing more bread. 8 years old, dressed in his father's tie, trying to attend business meetings. Nonna, Luca warned, but his lips twitched. Then at 16, Nonna's voice caught slightly. After we lost his father, he carried everything on his shoulders, too young for such burdens. The table grew quiet. Sophia felt Luca tense beside her, his hand finding hers under the table and squeezing once before releasing it. But now he smiles again, Nonna continued brightly. Perhaps because of this beautiful girl, yes? After dinner, while Luca spoke with his uncles in the study, Nonna cornered Sophia in the kitchen during cleanup. Come, sit with me. She patted the chair beside her. Her dark eyes, so like Luca's, studied Sophia intently. You are different from the others. Others? The women he brings. Pretty things, but empty. Nonna's gaze was knowing. He looks at you differently. The walls come down in his eyes when he watches you. Sophia's heart stuttered. We haven't been together long. Time means nothing in matters of the heart. Nonna patted her hand. But be careful with his. It breaks only once. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet, streetlights painting intermittent patterns across their faces. Sophia processed everything she'd learned, the teenage boy forced to become a man too soon, the brother who gave piggyback rides, the grandson who still deferred to his grandmother's authority. Luca's hand rested on her knee, thumb tracing absent patterns that sent shivers up her spine. The gesture felt possessive, intimate, far beyond their arranged agreement. But after tonight, seeing him with his family, the line between pretense and reality felt increasingly blurred. She watched his profile as he drove, strong features illuminated by passing lights. The dangerous Mafia boss was real, but so was the man who taught his nephew to tie a tie, who played with his niece's dolls without complaint, who kept his grandmother's garden weeded even with an empire to run. Sophia had entered this arrangement telling herself it was temporary, purely business. Now, watching him in the darkness of the car, she wasn't sure what was real anymore, except the way her heart raced when he looked at her and the warmth of his hand on her knee that felt increasingly like it belonged there. Sophia smoothed her silk dress, still processing how naturally she and Luca had fallen into a domestic routine after just one day at his penthouse. He'd worked in his office while she'd researched conservation techniques, the silence between them comfortable rather than strained. Now, sitting across from him at a Linnea, Chicago's most prestigious restaurant, she couldn't help but admire how the candlelight caught the sharp angles of his face. The Caravaggio study, Luca said, swirling his wine. I have people looking into who tried to frame you. There's evidence suggesting Marcus might have connections to the Castellanos. Sophia's hand tightened on her fork. You believe I'm innocent? I knew it the moment I met you at the gallery. Your reputation matters to you. His dark eyes held hers. I protect what's mine. The possessive statement should have annoyed her. Instead, warmth spread through her chest. Their conversation drifted to art, Luca displaying surprising knowledge about Renaissance masters. When she mentioned her thesis on chiaroscuro techniques, his eyes lit up. Light and shadow, he mused. The interplay between darkness and illumination. Rather fitting, don't you think? The implications hung between them as they discussed literature, music, and architecture. Each revelation of their shared interests made it harder for Sophia to maintain emotional distance. I didn't expect, she started. What? That a criminal could appreciate Dante? His smile held no bitterness. We contain multitudes, Cara. After dessert, Luca guided her toward the exit with his hand on her lower back. At the door, she felt him tense slightly. Stay close, he whispered, scanning the parking lot. 4 men emerged from the shadows, spreading out to surround them. Sophia's breath caught as Luca's entire demeanor transformed. Gone was the cultured dinner companion. In his place stood a predator, dangerous energy radiating from every line of his body. The Castellanos send their regards, one man sneered, lunging forward. Luca moved with lethal grace. He blocked the first attacker's knife, turning the blade back on its wielder in one fluid motion. His security team engaged the others, but Sophia couldn't tear her eyes from Luca's deadly efficiency. Touch her and die, Luca snarled as one man reached for Sophia. The threat wasn't empty. When the attacker grabbed for her anyway, Luca's hands shot out. The crack of breaking bone was followed by the man crumpling lifelessly to the ground. Sophia stumbled backward, her palm slicing on broken glass as she caught herself. The fight ended in seconds. 4 bodies lay still on the pavement while Luca's security team moved quickly to clean up. Sophia stared at Luca. His savagery should have horrified her. Instead, her pulse raced with the knowledge that his violence was in service of protecting her. Car, now! Luca's voice was clipped as he ushered her into the waiting vehicle. As they sped away, adrenaline crashed through Sophia's system. Her hand stung, blood welling from the cut. Luca noticed immediately, gently taking her palm in his. Let me see, he murmured, his touch impossibly tender for hands that had dealt death minutes before. I'm fine, she whispered, but didn't pull away. You're shaking. He cleaned the cut with a handkerchief, his movements precise and careful. Sophia watched his face as he worked, the contrast of his gentle attention against his lethal capabilities making her head spin. When he finished, his fingers lingered on her wrist, tracing her racing pulse. Their eyes met in the dim car interior. The usual restraint in Luca's expression had vanished, replaced by raw hunger that matched the need coiling in Sophia's stomach. The air between them grew thick with tension. She wasn't sure who moved first. One moment they were staring at each other, the next his mouth claimed hers with desperate intensity. Sophia gasped against his lips and Luca took advantage, deepening the kiss. His hands tangled in her hair as she gripped his shoulders, the passionate exchange making her dizzy. He tasted like expensive wine and danger. Every sweep of his tongue sent fire racing through her veins. When he nipped her bottom lip, she moaned softly, feeling his answering growl rumble through his chest. The kiss was everything she'd tried to resist. Possessive, all-consuming, addictive. It held the same devastating efficiency as his fighting, but channeled into pleasure rather than violence. Her body melted against his, craving more even as her mind screamed warnings about the man who'd killed without hesitation minutes ago. Sophia wrenched away, breathing hard. Her lips tingled as she stared at Luca, his usual controlled expression shattered. Naked desire darkened his eyes, but beneath that burned something deeper, something that made her heart stutter with equal parts yearning and fear. This wasn't part of their arrangement. This wasn't the simple attraction she could explain away. This was dangerous, more dangerous than the men who'd attacked them, more dangerous than the criminal empire he commanded. Because in that kiss, in the way he touched her like she was precious, even with blood still on his hands, in the way he looked at her now like she was everything, Sophia recognized a truth that terrified her more than any violence could. The ride back to the penthouse crackled with unspoken tension. Sophia's hand throbbed, a sharp reminder of the violence she'd witnessed. Inside, Luca led her straight to his marble bathroom, retrieving a first aid kit with practiced efficiency. Sit, he commanded softly, gesturing to the counter. Sophia perched on the cool surface, watching as he laid out supplies with methodical precision. When he took her injured hand, his touch was impossibly gentle, a stark contrast to the lethal grace she'd witnessed hours before. "This might sting," he warned, cleaning the cut with antiseptic. Sophia hissed softly, but didn't pull away. Instead, she studied his face as he worked, noting the intense focus in his dark eyes. The same hands that had snapped a man's neck now treated her with exquisite care, as if she were made of precious glass. "You're staring, Kara," he murmured, not looking up from his task. "I'm trying to understand you," she admitted. His hands stilled briefly before resuming their careful ministrations. "What you saw tonight wasn't the full story," she finished. "No." He secured the bandage with surgical tape. "But it's part of who I am." Their eyes met in the mirror, and the air grew thick with possibility. Luca's thumb traced small circles on her inner wrist, each touch sending sparks along her nerve endings. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her neck. Sophia's heart thundered. It would be so easy to turn her head, to capture his lips again, to lose herself in the dangerous attraction between them. Instead, she slid carefully from the counter. "I need time," she whispered, retreating to her room. Sleep proved elusive. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Luca's lethal dance in the parking lot, felt the scorching heat of their kiss. Around 3 a.m., an anguished cry pierced the silence. Sophia bolted upright, heart racing. Another cry echoed through the penthouse. Raw, desperate sounds coming from Luca's room. She padded down the hallway, pushing his door open carefully. Moonlight spilled across his bed, illuminating his thrashing form. "No! Antonio, run!" he called out, voice thick with terror. "Papa, please! Luca!" She approached cautiously. "Luca, wake up!" His eyes snapped open, wild and unfocused. In one fluid motion, he had her pinned beneath him, forearm pressed against her throat. Recognition dawned slowly in his gaze. "Sophia?" He released her immediately, horror replacing confusion. "Christ, I could have!" "But you didn't." She touched his face gently. "You're safe. It was just a nightmare." He shuddered, dropping his forehead to her shoulder. For long moments, they stayed like that, his ragged breathing slowly steadying against her skin. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "I was 16 when they killed my father, made me watch." His words fell like stones in the darkness. "Antonio, my childhood friend, tried to help. They shot him too. I see their faces every night." Sophia stroked his hair, offering silent comfort as he continued. "Had to take over everything, protect my mother and sister. No time to grieve, no room for weakness." His laugh held no humor. "The things I've done to keep them safe." "You were just a boy," she whispered. "Not for long." He lifted his head, eyes haunted. "Violence becomes easy when it's necessary. Too easy." Sophia understood sacrifice, though differently. "My parents died 3 years ago. Drunk driver. I was supposed to be with them that night, but stayed late at the gallery." Her voice caught. "Sometimes I think surviving is harder than dying." "You blame yourself." It wasn't a question. "Like you do." She traced the scar along his collarbone. "We're both carrying ghosts." "Marcus?" he prompted softly. 18 months of making me doubt everything about myself. When I finally left," she swallowed hard, "he tried to destroy what was left." Luca's thumb brushed tears she hadn't realized were falling. The tender gesture undid her completely. She turned her face into his palm, pressing her lips to his skin. Time suspended as their eyes met. The air grew heavy with shared understanding, with need, with something deeper neither dared name. When Luca's mouth found hers, it wasn't the desperate passion of their first kiss. This was slower, deeper, an exploration rather than a claiming. His hands traced her curves with reverent attention, learning what made her gasp and arch against him. She mapped the scars across his chest, each mark a story of survival. Their clothes fell away slowly, every newly revealed inch of skin worshipped with lips and fingertips. When he finally joined their bodies, Sophia's cry held as much emotion as pleasure. Luca whispered her name like a prayer, his controlled facade crumbling completely. They moved together with increasing urgency, finding a rhythm that spoke of need beyond the physical. Sophia's nails raked his back as pleasure built, while Luca's grip on her hips tightened possessively. When release claimed them, it was simultaneously gentle and devastating. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets and moonlight, neither willing to break the spell with words. Luca traced patterns on her skin, while Sophia listened to his heartbeat, strong and steady beneath her cheek. "I'm falling for a dangerous man," she finally whispered, voicing the truth she could no longer deny. Luca's arms tightened around her, his vulnerability matching her own. The first hints of dawn painted the sky outside, but neither moved to separate. They had crossed a line tonight, exposed parts of themselves kept carefully hidden from the world. In the growing light, they faced the reality that this was no longer an arrangement of convenience. Something far more powerful had taken root, something neither could control or resist. Morning light streamed through the penthouse windows as Sophia stirred, wrapped in expensive sheets and Luca's warmth. Last night had changed everything. The vulnerability they'd shared, the confessions whispered in darkness, the passionate connection that went far deeper than physical desire. Luca's fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "Good morning, tesoro." The Italian endearment sent a shiver down her spine. She turned to face him, still marveling at how different he looked in these private moments. Softer somehow, though no less powerful. They shared breakfast on the terrace, fresh pastries and strong coffee, while the city hummed below. Sophia watched Luca check his phone, noting how his jaw tightened at one message. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just business." He set the phone aside, but she caught the flicker of concern before his expression smoothed. "It's being handled." He stood suddenly, extending his hand. "I want to show you something I've never shared with anyone else." Intrigued, Sophia followed him to his private elevator. Instead of going up, they descended several floors. The doors opened to reveal a sophisticated security system requiring Luca's fingerprint and retinal scan. "Close your eyes," he murmured once they passed through. She felt him guide her forward, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Open them!" Sophia gasped. They stood in what could only be described as a museum-quality gallery. Professional lighting illuminated piece after masterful piece, paintings, sculptures, and installations that took her breath away. "This is impossible," she whispered, moving closer to examine a small Vermeer she'd thought was in a private collection in Geneva. "These pieces are all authentic." Luca watched her reaction carefully. "I've been collecting for years." Her curator's eye identified more treasures. A Modigliani portrait, early Picasso sketches, a hauntingly beautiful marble torso that had disappeared from a Roman museum in the 1960s. The professional in her wanted to ask how he'd acquired them, but self-preservation kept her silent. "Your first gallery show," Luca said quietly, "the one featuring emerging Italian artists. Your essay on the intersection of classical technique and modern perspective caught my attention." Sophia turned to him, surprised. "That was 4 years ago. I followed your career since then, your curatorial choices, your academic articles." He moved closer, his presence magnetic. "I arranged to be at your exhibition that night. I wanted to meet the brilliant woman whose understanding of art matched my own passion for it." "You orchestrated our meeting?" The revelation should have angered her, but something in his expression held her still. "I had no part in the theft or what followed," he said firmly. "Those complications weren't part of my plan. I simply wanted to know you." "Why tell me this now?" Luca's hand cupped her cheek, his touch reverent. "Because you've become my weakness, Sophia. The one thing that could break me." His thumb traced her lower lip. "And somehow, that makes me stronger than I've ever been." Her heart thundered against her ribs. "Luca!" "I'm falling in love with you," he confessed roughly. "God help me, I've never been more terrified or more certain of anything." Sophia reached for him, drawing his mouth to hers in a kiss that expressed everything she couldn't yet say. When they parted, she whispered, "I'm falling in love with you too." His arms tightened around her. "I'll find a way to make this work. More legitimate businesses, fewer dangerous connections, a future we can build together. I don't want you to change who you are. Who I am is a man who would do anything to keep you safe and happy." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Including changing what needs to change." Their moment was interrupted by Luca's phone vibrating insistently. His expression darkened as he read the message. "There's a situation at one of my clubs that needs immediate attention." He kissed her again, apologetic. "Stay here, explore the collection. I'll be back for dinner." "Be careful," she said softly. "Always, tesoro." He squeezed her hand before striding toward the elevator. Alone in the gallery, Sophia wandered through the collections, professional excitement warring with personal concerns. Each piece told a story, of beauty, of history, of acquisition methods she probably shouldn't contemplate too deeply. Like the man himself, the collection was a study in contrasts. Delicate watercolors shared space with bold modernist statements. Renaissance masters hung alongside contemporary provocateurs. The curation revealed both sophisticated taste and deep understanding of art history. She paused before a small Degas dancer, remembering how she'd written about a similar piece in her graduate thesis. Had Luca read that too? The thought of him following her work from afar, appreciating her intellectual perspective before ever meeting her, added another layer to their complex connection. Moving through the space, Sophia realized the gallery represented more than just Luca's wealth or power. This was his sanctuary, a place where beauty and culture provided respite from the violence of his other world. That he'd chosen to share it with her spoke volumes about his trust and feelings. Their declarations of love still hung in the air, both thrilling and terrifying in their implications. Loving Luca meant accepting all of him, the cultured art collector and the dangerous crime boss, the tender lover and the ruthless protector. The rational part of her mind whispered warnings about falling for a man whose business empire was built on violence and illegal activities. But her heart had already decided, recognizing in Luca a kindred spirit who understood both her strength and vulnerability. Standing among priceless masterpieces that shouldn't exist in a private collection, Sophia acknowledged that her life had become as complex and layered as the art surrounding her. But for the first time since being drawn into Luca's dangerous world, she felt truly certain about where she belonged. Sophia wandered through Luca's penthouse, trailing her fingers along surfaces that now held new meaning after their declarations in the art gallery. Every detail revealed another layer of the complex man she'd fallen for, from the meticulously organized bookshelf to the half-finished chess game on his office desk. Her phone buzzed with a message from Antonio. "Boss delayed. Security protocols in place." She checked the time. Barely 4 o'clock. An idea formed as she remembered the warmth of Sunday dinner at his grandmother's house. After a quick call to Nonna Valenti, who rattled off recipes with enthusiastic Italian instructions, Sophia took inventory of Luca's gourmet kitchen. She found everything needed for his grandmother's signature osso buco and risotto Milanese. As she chopped herbs and seared meat, the familiar routine of cooking settled her nerves. The kitchen television provided background noise until a breaking news banner caught her attention. Sophia's hands froze mid-stir as she watched footage of police vehicles surrounding Luna, one of Luca's most prestigious nightclubs. Federal agents executing a search warrant based on allegations of money laundering and international art trafficking. The reporter's voice faded as Sophia's pulse quickened. She tried calling Luca, but each attempt went straight to voicemail. The sky darkened outside the floor-to-ceiling windows as she paced, the perfectly prepared meal staying warm in the oven. When the elevator finally opened at 9 o'clock, Luca strode in with Antonio close behind. His usual immaculate appearance was slightly disheveled, his expression grim. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly at the smell of home cooking. "You made dinner," he said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Your grandmother's recipes." Sophia studied his face. "I saw the news." "Let's eat first." Luca loosened his tie. "Then we'll talk." Antonio positioned himself by the entrance while they settled at the dining table. The familiar comfort of sharing food provided temporary respite from the worry gnawing at Sophia's stomach. "This tastes exactly like my nonna's," Luca said after a few bites, genuine appreciation in his voice, despite the evening strain. She was very specific about the saffron ratio in the risotto. Sophia managed a small smile. "Now tell me what happened." Luca set down his fork, jaw tightening. "Someone planted evidence at Luna. Financial records, shipping manifest connecting us to stolen artwork. Professional job, meant to look like internal documents. But you can prove they're fake." "Eventually, but the damage is done. This was coordinated. The raid timed perfectly with anonymous tips to multiple agencies." He reached for his wine glass. "It's not random. Someone's moving against us systematically." Sophia's hand trembled slightly as she took a sip of water. "Us? You're connected to me now. They're using that." His eyes darkened. "The gallery theft, the break-in attempt, now this. Each move designed to pressure both of us." Later that night, tangled in sheets still damp from lovemaking, Luca traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "I think I know who's behind this." Sophia propped herself up on an elbow. "Who?" "Carlo Castellano, Elena's husband, my chief rival in Chicago." His fingers stilled. "But he'd need someone with intimate knowledge of both my operations and your gallery world." "Marcus," Sophia whispered, the pieces clicking into place. "It fits. His art world connections, his obsession with hurting you, his wounded pride." Luca's voice hardened. Castellano would provide the muscle and criminal expertise, while Marcus supplies insider information. Morning sunlight streamed through the bedroom windows as Sophia woke alone. The shower ran in the master bathroom, while Luca's phone buzzed repeatedly on his nightstand. After the third urgent notification, concern overrode privacy. Sophia checked the screen, finding messages from Antonio with surveillance photos. Marcus entering Castellano's private club, then leaving with both Carlo and Elena. Additional images showed documentation of the gallery theft plan and subsequent frame job attempt. When Luca emerged from the shower, water still beating on his chest, Sophia wordlessly held out his phone. His expression turned to the harsh, fluorescent lights of the holding cell cast sickly shadows across Sophia's face as she curled onto the narrow metal cot. Her designer dress from the night of her arrest had been replaced with an orange jumpsuit that scratched against her skin. 36 hours had passed in a blur of fingerprints, mugshots, and preliminary hearings. When the guard announced she had a visitor, Sophia expected her court-appointed lawyer. Instead, Marcus Cole's smug face appeared in the interview room doorway. Her stomach churned as he settled into the chair across from her, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit. "You look terrible, darling," he said with mock concern. "Prison lighting doesn't suit you." "What are you doing here?" Sophia's voice was hoarse from lack of sleep. Marcus leaned forward, his carefully maintained facade cracking to reveal the malice beneath. "I wanted to see my handiwork in person. You know, I spent months planning this, every detail orchestrated perfectly." "You stole the painting?" "It wasn't a question." "Of course, though I had help from my new business partners." His smile widened. The Castellanos were quite eager to assist once I explained how taking you down would destroy Luca Valenti. Sophia's hands clenched under the table. "The break-in at my apartment? A little pressure to push you right where we wanted, into Luca's protection." Marcus examined his manicured nails. "Making you both feel safe before we struck. Though I must admit, I didn't expect you to actually fall for him. That made it even better." "Where is he?" Sophia fought to keep her voice steady. "The news reports." "Oh yes, the ambush." Marcus's eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "Last I heard, he took 3 bullets before falling into the river. They haven't found the body yet, but in this weather..." He shrugged. "I wouldn't hold out hope." The room spun as Marcus's words hit her like physical blows. She barely registered his continued gloating about evidence trails and witness statements that would ensure her conviction. "Years in prison," he mused. "Your career destroyed, your reputation ruined, and your dangerous protector dead in the Chicago River. I couldn't have scripted it better." After Marcus left, Sophia was escorted back to her cell. Only then did she allow herself to break, silent tears streaming down her face as grief and terror overwhelmed her. The possibility that Luca was truly gone felt like a physical wound in her chest. 3 days passed in a gray haze of processing procedures and preliminary hearings. On the morning of the 4th day, Sophia barely made it to the cell's metal toilet before violent nausea overtook her. The guard, noticing her continued illness, arranged for a medical examination. The doctor's confirmation sent her world spinning again. Pregnant, approximately 6 weeks. Luca's child grew inside her even as she faced years in prison, even as he might be lying dead at the bottom of the river. Meanwhile, in a private medical facility, hidden on the outskirts of Chicago, Antonio Russo maintained his vigilant watch over his boss's unconscious form. He'd pulled Luca from the river himself, getting him to trusted doctors before anyone could confirm the death. The bullets had done serious damage, but Luca Valenti was too stubborn to die. When Luca finally opened his eyes, 2 weeks after the ambush, his first whispered word was, "Sophia." Antonio quickly explained the situation, her arrest, the fabricated evidence, Marcus's involvement with the Castellanos. Cold fury replaced the weakness in Luca's eyes. Despite his injuries, he immediately began issuing orders, orchestrating an intricate plan of revenge and rescue. Every painful step of physical therapy fueled his determination to destroy those who had dared touch what was his. 2 weeks into her detention, Sophia was abruptly informed of her release on bail. She emerged from the courthouse into bright sunlight, finding Antonio waiting beside a black SUV with a team of expensive-looking lawyers. "Arrangements have been made," was all Antonio would say as they drove away from the city. They arrived at a secluded lake house just before sunset, the lawyers explaining it was safer than returning to the penthouse. That evening, Sophia paced the bedroom, jumping at every shadow. When footsteps approached her door, she grabbed a heavy lamp, ready to defend herself. The lamp clattered to the floor as a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Luca looked gaunt, his usual pristine appearance marked by healing wounds, but his eyes burned with the same intensity as always. For a moment, they simply stared at each other across the room. "You're alive?" Sophia whispered, her voice breaking. Their reunion exploded into desperate kisses and clutching hands, relief and anger and passion tangling together. When they finally broke apart, Sophia placed Luca's hand against her still flat stomach. "I'm pregnant," she said softly. The infamous crime boss sank to his knees, pressing his forehead against her abdomen with a reverence that brought tears to her eyes. When he looked up, his expression held a new fire, the determination of a man who would reshape the world to protect his family. 18 months later, Sophia adjusted the delicate lace sleeve of her designer dress, while her daughter Sophia slept peacefully against her chest in a cream-colored baby carrier. The newly renovated Valenti Gallery of Fine Arts sparkled with the city's elite, drawn to the grand opening of what promised to be Chicago's most prestigious art space. Massive windows stretched from floor to ceiling, offering breathtaking views of the cityscape. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over carefully curated exhibitions, a perfect blend of Renaissance masterpieces and contemporary works that reflected both her artistic vision and Luca's private collection, now legally acquired and properly documented. "She's still sleeping through all this noise?" Elena, Luca's sister, approached with a glass of champagne for herself and sparkling water for Sophia. After everything that happened, the family had embraced Sophia completely, with Elena becoming like the sister she never had. "Takes after her father," Sophia smiled, gently stroking her daughter's dark curls. She could sleep through anything. The transformation of the past year and a half still amazed her sometimes. After the confrontation with the Castellanos, Luca had methodically restructured his empire, converting the majority of his businesses to legitimate enterprises. The art gallery became the crown jewel of their legal ventures, combining their shared passion with smart business. Their wedding had been intimate, but elegant, held in the garden of Nonna's house, with the family matriarch beaming proudly as she watched her grandson marry the woman who had changed him so profoundly. Sophia's simple white dress had concealed her small baby bump, though the knowing twinkle in Nonna's eye suggested nothing escaped her notice. "The Times critic just arrived," Elena murmured, nodding toward the entrance. "And that collector from Paris you were hoping would attend." Sophia straightened, scanning the growing crowd. The exhibition had drawn international attention, featuring several pieces thought lost to history, alongside works from emerging artists she'd personally championed. It was everything she'd dreamed of professionally, made sweeter by sharing it with her family. She felt Luca's presence before she saw him, that familiar electricity charging the air. He appeared at her side in an impeccably tailored black suit, his hand settling possessively on her lower back as he pressed a kiss to their daughter's head. "Everything is perfect," he murmured against her ear. The scars from that night at the Castellano Club were barely visible now, though Sophia knew they still pulled when he exercised. Other scars, the deeper emotional ones, had healed through their love and the miracle of their daughter. Antonio materialized briefly at Luca's side, whispering something that made her husband's expression shift subtly. Sophia recognized that micro-expression now. Someone potentially threatening had entered their carefully secured space. She felt Luca's body tense beside her, his protective instincts surging. But they weren't the same people they'd been 18 months ago. They'd grown stronger together, learning to face threats as a united front rather than trying to shield each other. Sophia's eyes met his, a silent conversation passing between them. She adjusted little Sophia more securely against her chest as Luca drew them both closer to his side, his presence both reassuring and dangerous, the perfect balance of the man she'd fallen in love with. "You are mine forever, Sophia," he whispered, his voice carrying that blend of tenderness and steel that still made her heart race. "And I am completely yours." The threat turned out to be nothing, just an overeager reporter trying to slip past security for an exclusive story about the mysterious Valenti family. But the moment crystallized everything they'd become, partners in both love and strength, neither diminished by the other, but made more complete. Their daughter stirred slightly, her tiny hand clutching the pearl necklace Luca had given Sophia as a wedding gift. So much of their early relationship had been marked by danger and uncertainty. Yet here they stood in the gleaming gallery that represented their shared future. Sophia's artistic vision combined with Luca's business acumen and resources, creating something remarkable together. The crowd parted as Nonna made her entrance, immediately drawing attention as she proudly showed off family photos on her phone to anyone who would look. Most featured her great-granddaughter, though there were plenty of Luca and Sophia as well, caught in casual moments at Sunday dinners or family celebrations. Sophia leaned into her husband's embrace, watching their family and friends mingle with art world elite. This was their legacy now, not just the gallery or their legitimate businesses, but the love they'd built from such unlikely beginnings. Every test and trial had only strengthened their bond, proving that what they had was real and unshakable. Little Sophia sighed contentedly in her sleep, secure in her mother's arms and her father's protective presence. She would grow up surrounded by beauty and love, never knowing the darkness they'd overcome to create this bright future. Their daughter would inherit strength and sophistication from both parents, along with an appreciation for art and culture that was already part of her heritage. Luca's thumb traced gentle circles on Sophia's back as they greeted guests together, their movements perfectly synchronized after months of practice at such events. They were partners in every sense, in business, in parenthood, in love. The dangerous mafia boss and the refined art curator had found their perfect balance, creating a love story uniquely their own. Around them, the gallery sparkled with promise and possibility, filled with the art they both loved and the future they'd fought to build. Every piece on display represented not just artistic value, but their shared vision, their commitment to creating something meaningful together.